So to have a lot. Yeah, that's the dream.
That's so exciting.
All right, let's try.
Happy rainy Monday
Farthest is like
to everyone. I'd like to call this school board meeting to order. It looks like everyone on the board is present, so hello, welcome. Great to see so many people out here today. Thanks for coming. We're going to start with some recognitions. First is Corey Muncie.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for coming to recognize our secretaries. We appreciate it. For tonight, Mallory, my assistant principal, and myself wanted to take a second to recognize our amazing secretarial staff. Amber, Deirdre, and Lori, can you wave to everybody up front? I know they're very excited about it. For three people who are in the front of our building and interface with students, staff, and community all day, I think this is the last place they wanted to be right now. So thank you for coming. We appreciate it. As you know, MIW is almost always our students' and parents' first experience in MSAD 51. This means we often field a lot of questions over routine, structure, supports, where's drop-off, all of those sort of questions that our new parents come. And luckily for our families, their first point of contact is usually one of these three individuals. And every single person they talk to on the phone, it sounds like they're talking to a close friend or a family member. They're so kind, so patient, so caring. I really can't say enough positive things about them. Tim, where's Tim? I know you love some data, so I have some data for you. Every year they process between 150 and 200 new registrations, which is a very time-consuming process. Every day they handle around 40 to 50 dismissal changes where parents call or fill out the form to say, my kid's going somewhere different today. I believe there's over 100 phone calls a day that come into the office between staff and outside the building. Every afternoon they confirm between 5 and 15 parents' identity to make sure the right person is picking up their kid. They consult between 12 and 30 different schedules to make sure they can find kids, and are they on the playground, are they in an allied art? And they also hand out between 10 and 30 snacks per day for hungry kids who come to the office. They also do 100 other things. That's a very small snippet, but you know, everyone always jokes that secretaries run the building, and I don't think it's a joke. They are amazing, and we are so fortunate to have them. And somehow they always do it all with a smile. So just wanted to give them a big round of applause and thank them for everything and recognize them.
Thank you so much. What a great way to kick off today's board meeting. We so appreciate, I know every time I've ever walked in that building, and I usually don't know where I'm going, and so I so appreciate all the things that you do for our school, so thank you. Great. So we'd like to move on to the second item of recognition, Steve Moriarty. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone, on this rainy early fall evening. I'm Steve Moriarty from 12 Oak Street in Cumberland. I currently have the incredible honor of serving as Cumberland State Representative in the Maine Legislature. And some of you may have heard me say this before, but one of the most enjoyable aspects of the job is the ability to come back to town and to recognize individual and group accomplishments and sometimes special events in the history of the district. And so it is tonight that I'm here to present a legislative sentiment in recognition of the girls' state championship, girls lacrosse team in the state championship late last spring. I'm joined tonight by my colleague in the legislature, State Senator Teresa Peirce, whose district includes both Cumberland and North Yarmouth. My colleague in the House, Ann Graham, couldn't be here tonight. She is away. She represents North Yarmouth as well as part of Gray. So again, this is a tremendous pleasure to be able to make this presentation. This is known as a legislative sentiment, and I'll simply read it to you. It's mercifully brief. State of Maine, be it known that we, the members of the Senate and House of Representatives, join in recognizing the Greeley High School girls lacrosse team of Cumberland, which won the State B state championship. We extend our congratulations and best wishes, and be it ordered that this official expression of sentiment be sent forthwith on behalf of the 131st Legislature and the people of the state of Maine. The sentiment is signed by the President of the Senate as well as the Speaker of the House, and also contains Senator Peirce's name, Representative Graham's name, and my own. Unfortunately, I understand that the members of the team could not be present this evening, so in their absence, I present this to the board and certainly trust that it will be conveyed to the appropriate individuals. And my personal congratulations and best wishes to everyone involved in competition, in coaching, and in supporting the team. So thanks so much tonight.
It's beautiful. Folder. Thank you. Great. So that concludes our items for recognition, and we're going to move on to approval of minutes. Can I get a motion?
Did we get the minutes?
Yes, they were in the school board packet.
I move to approve the minutes of September 7th, 2023.
Thank you, Annika. Can I get a second?
Second.
Great, thanks, Tom. Any questions, comments, corrections?
It's fine.
Okay.
I trust you. I don't know whether or not in my phone.
Okay, can I move to a vote? All in favor? Great. Thanks, everyone. Okay. So the next item is public comment. The board recognizes the value of public comments on school and educational matters to permit fair and orderly expression of public comments as board business meetings while still allowing the board to conduct its business efficiently. The board has established procedures as defined in policy BEDH. So our public comment period, the time is limited to 3 minutes per individual. Speakers, I will recognize speakers, and the comments should be addressed to myself, the chair. Please use the podium when making your comments. Last board meeting, we tested our 3-minute timer, which is up now on the board for everyone to see. And please state your name and address at the beginning of your remarks. And residents and staff members will be given priority over non-residents within the allotted time. And so at public comment, it's not a time for discussions with the board or speakers. And the board will generally not comment on remarks made by speakers. So I'd like to invite anyone here for public comment to approach.
Larry Offiero from Cumberland Center. I will make just 2 points tonight. First point, pornography destroys. Studies from UNICEF and the College of Pediatrics reveal that pornography is a gateway to destructive sex habits and often leads to addiction. It increases the perception that casual sex is fun and exciting, and abstinence is abnormal. It has led to many broken marriages. Statistics show it increases the infidelity rate by 300% and is involved in 56% of divorces. It increases the risk of minor-on-minor sex crimes, and the list goes on. My second point is, unbelievably, we have hardcore pornography in our libraries. It's so insane that if I were to say a sentence from one of these books, you would probably try to stop me. Most parents are not aware of this problem. And parents, if you're close to your kids and you teach them right from wrong, don't think you're safe. When kids are exposed to pornography, studies show they typically do not go to their parents, but they do go to their friends and siblings. We here are not bigots. We are simply concerned parents who, until now, have been quiet. We just want our children to be educated, not sexualized or hypersexualized. I'm a retired math professor. I've been an educator for over 30 years. I've always stood against racism, prejudice, exclusivity, inequity. But we have a serious problem here. On page 166 in the book Genderqueer, right here in our library, I quote, and this was also said on the Senate floor, "I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life. Then I want you inside me." It gets worse, but I'll stop here. What in God's name does this have to do with reading, writing, and arithmetic? What does it benefit a child if you educate his mind, but you corrupt his soul? This is grooming and indoctrination, pure and simple. To quote Edmund Burke, all it takes for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. So good people, we have to do something. We must be the change that we want to see. We, the people, must do it. Call the superintendent, the principal, the librarian. Fight as if your kids' lives depend upon it, because it does.
Thank you, Larry. Next speaker.
My name's Amy Hale. I'm from North Yarmouth, and I am here on behalf of Foundation 51. For the past 25 years, Foundation 51 has been a volunteer-run nonprofit that supports teaching and learning within our district. It has done this by awarding grants to teachers for innovative projects and ideas that cannot be funded within their budgets. There are 2 grant cycles per year, one that just opened on Friday, so any teachers out there or anyone who's listening, September 15th to October 15th is when our first grant cycle is open. And we have funded projects like purchasing desk bikes, an outside sensory path, a climate science project at the high school, and most recently, a book vending machine at MIW. We also work closely with administrators, guidance counselors, and social workers behind the scenes through our Student Assistance Committee to discreetly support any acute needs for families and students. These important initiatives are funded in multiple ways, and one very fun way is coming up next Friday, September 29th. Foundation 51 Fall Fling will be held from 6:30 to 9:30 under the tent at Skyline Farm. Tickets are now on sale, and the link is on the website, foundation51.org, on social media, and on posters around town. With this giant group of people here to support our schools, I am certain that this is going to be the best fundraiser ever. So I do have a QR code. I will be around, so I hope you all can come. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Mike Timmons. I live in Cumberland and retired after 47 years in education. I also served in the House of Representatives and served on the Committee on Criminal Justice and Community Service. I'm here to talk about the book Genderqueer, but my request would be to the board and the whole community to do what many, many districts have done, is just ban that book. That probably wouldn't take care of all the problems because there's other books that would be bad as well. The book, Genderqueer, does have sexual explicit images. This book is the #1 book banned by many districts as inappropriate for students under age 18. My question is, Genderqueer used by the staff K through 8th grade? Is Genderqueer used in grades 9 through 12th grade? I hope your answers are no. Is this book, Genderqueer, in the library throughout the district, available to all students? Is that correct? Some districts have up to 65 books that have been appropriate and inappropriate if they were sexually explicit. 59 districts have banned these books. The book Genderqueer is the #1 book banned in the state and all over many places. Have the parents with students in our schools been informed that these sexually explicit books have been banned by districts? How many books like this do we have in our district? If answers are yes, parents could get together and just have a class action suit saying, let's help the board ban that book or ban other books. That's their privilege. I hope all those parents, school board members, and school officials and guests here tonight agree they have responsibilities for what is right for our youth. Thank you, Mike Timmons.
Thank you, Mike.
Good evening, Scott Jordan, Cumberland. I attended a school board meeting on July 17th. A precedent was set that evening. Mr. Robert Vail, town councilor, was given 6 minutes and 1 second to speak. Yet I was interrupted multiple times and told I could only speak 3 minutes. My question, Madam Chair, is why was I interrupted and why was that precedent set? So people can go to war, fight for their country, but we get 3 minutes to come to a school board meeting where you're not going to engage us? We pay taxes. We pay you. You work for us, not the other way around. That evening, Madam Chair, you contacted our police department, and you said a group of us were standing outside that door and would not leave. You lied. I have the police report to prove it. Tax-paying citizens were saying goodbye to each other outside this door. Jeff Porter, superintendent, was asked a question by one of those tax-paying citizens, and the rest of us had a conversation with him. You lied multiple times. Chief Rumsey provided the report. Why would you do such a thing? Because people have an opposition? Madam Chair, can you please ask Megan Lichter why at the end of the meeting, when I stated there was pornography in our libraries, she stated that was my interpretation. What is your interpretation? That's page 171 of the book Genderqueer, which the author states is 18 and over. This is in our libraries. Can you tell me what that is, Megan? 'Cause I'm going to stand here for another 1 minute and 9 seconds and let you look at that. Let you process that. That's what our kids are seeing. And you're okay with that? You're a mother and you're okay with that? This is in our libraries, folks. Are you okay with that as tax-paying citizens?
No.
You're okay with that? Seriously? Okay with this. And just so you know, this isn't two boys. This is two women with a strap on engaging in oral sex. You're okay with that? You're okay with that? No. Why are you okay with that? Please, because I want to know from an educational perspective why you're okay with that. Because as parents, you should be teaching that, not our schools. So you can say yes, but you can't answer the question. I'm lost.
I can answer that.
Please do.
I'm one of the people that said yes. Have you read that book?
I have. I have a copy of it right here.
Okay. So my suggestion, instead of just showing that
Sure.
Why don't you also show the 3 pages before what was being discussed, and then the 3 pages after?
How about I read it and show it?
The whole thing?
Sure.
Go for it.
Senator Kennedy read it on the floor of the House.
Thank you for your
no,
time.
No, we're not done. I'm not leaving. Let's get that clear. I'm not leaving this podium.
We do need to respect the process.
Okay. No.
I'm gonna shut up. You can shut up.
No, you took my time. Can I get my time back, Madam Chair?
Wow.
Thank you for your time.
No. Can I get my time back, Madam Chair? Our Congress and our Senate allows it. Why can't I? Are you a board member?
I will give you 30, I'll give you 30 seconds.
I was asking a question. Thank you.
I'll give you 30 seconds. Can you,
Thank you.
Hold on just one moment while the students adjust the timer?
Thank you.
I respectfully ask that we don't have any crosstalk in the
Yes,
audience,
thank
please.
you.
Sure.
Thank you. You can go. Thank you.
Fast forward, we've been dating for 2 months. We've made out. We've had sex. We've moved on to sexting at work. I got a new strap-on dildo harness today. I can't wait to put it on you and fit it perfectly. In my mouth. Are you going to look so hot? Welcome to the library. I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life. Then I want you inside me. Holy shit. This is the most turned on I've ever been in my life. I'm dying. This has been the visual I've been picturing all day. But I can't feel anything. This was much harder when it was only in my imagination. Let's try something else. Of course. Do you want me to go on and on? Seriously? You're okay. There's books. Lawn Boy. It's in our junior high school. 13 Reasons Why. You want these in our schools? You talk about diversity, Jeff.
Thank you,
Is the
Scott.
Bible in our schools?
Thank you, Scott.
Jeff, you're a Christian. You're a man of faith. Stop being lukewarm. Step up as a leader. Since our town manager won't do it, our police chief won't do it, be a leader.
Excuse me, your
Madam
time
Chair,
has
be a
expired.
leader. Do something about this, please. We have to save our
Thank you,
children.
Scott.
This is wrong.
I would
Thank
like
you.
to invite our
Thank
next
you.
speaker
Please.
to the podium.
I'm coming back when she's done. Here, why don't you take a look at the book? It's free.
Wow, how exciting. My name is Katie Simpson. I live in Cumberland on Sturbridge Lane. I am the parent of 2 children. I grew up in rural Maine in a time when it was not safe to be a queer person anywhere that I'm aware of, but especially not in rural Maine. There was nothing, including publicly out people, that made it safe to be someone like I am and was, which is a bisexual person living in rural Maine. I am all for parents teaching their kids sexuality. I'm also well aware that a lot of parents don't. So having something in the schools, I don't really care what book or which books, but having something that shows different ways of being in different possible lives is really important to children. My 10-year-old, when I told him about this book in particular, he has not read it, but he is aware that books are being discussed and the words book banning have been thrown around, which, side note, I'm pretty sure that's not what that quote you read meant earlier. That was referring to not this specific book. His response to banning books was, he did not think that banning books was the way for us to make people feel more comfortable and to make people feel supported in our communities. He was much more interested in he asked me, like, will parents explain what it means? And I said, if the parents are concerned about it, they will explain what it means. And so I would respond that way. If you're worried about your kids seeing material that you're not excited about, talk to them about it. That's what we do when we have thoughts that maybe conflict or disagree with what's being taught, whether it's in schools or they see something in the media. that's what school's for, introducing kids to lots of different ideas. So I would say book banning makes me pretty uncomfortable. I would urge the board and the school not to engage in that and to support the libraries and librarians in engaging with students and including books that show a wide variety of different ways of being in the world. Let's see, maybe I'll just stand here for 30 more seconds and see if anyone else wants to stand up besides Scott. Oh, looks like someone's behind me. Anyone else? Besides Scott, want to speak? You spoke already. Go ahead and get in line. It's public comment, though. It's a 3-minute limit.
No.
I'm,
Excuse me,
all
Madam
of you
Chair.
have
That was a
before me.
request not
I
to
would
have
like-
crosstalk.
All
I
of
would
you.
like to recognize the person at the podium, 3 minutes per individual, once at the podium. We have public comment each meeting. There's other ways to engage with the school board. We have public emails. We only have one opportunity at the beginning for public comment at each board meeting. We do have a lot of board business.
I guess
as
your
well.
time's up, and you did say the words book ban.
So the new school is more important than the actual kids in the building? Really, in the lawn?
Is there? I'd like to
Excuse me.
recognize. I'd like to recognize another speaker to the podium, please.
Came at a fun time. I just have a few quick comments and thoughts to share. I also want to welcome the new members of the board to this thankless task of dealing with everyone's complaints. And Leanne, we are so happy to have you as board chair. I'm so sorry that your first meeting had to be rudely interrupted. That is no way to show the respect that you so rightly deserve.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Zach Bouchard. I am from Cumberland.
Thank you, Zach.
In regards to banning any of the mentioned books from the library, please don't let the belligerence of the so-called silent majority call into question the ability of our students to learn a diverse set of ideas, which is what education is about in the first place. If we could only include books that every single person in the community agreed on all together, there would only be about 7 books in the library. There are lots of books in the school library that I completely, wholeheartedly disagree with. But again, asking the school board to ban them is just a non-starter. And also, the true way to tell a silent majority is by voting. Voting is, by definition, a silent, private way to determine the majority. And as we can recall, Mr. Jordan wasn't even able to get 1/3 of the vote when he ran for state rep, so he got 31%. He ran against someone who was completely against banning books. When running for town council, he was only able to get 38% of the vote. Again, running against someone who was also against banning books. My guess is that of the people who did vote for him, only a small fringe of them want to actually ban books. So this silent majority is in fact, by definition, in the world of reality, nothing more than a very loud and very small minority. We all voted for who would be on the school board, and to my knowledge, none of you were expressing that you wanted to ban books. The vast majority of the people in our community don't want to do this, and we all voted accordingly. While the idea of banning books should not be completely ignored, as diverse ideas and freedom of speech should be protected in a democratic republic, ultimately know that in this town, this is a fringe and radical idea that should not be taken seriously. I do have an idea that should be taken seriously. As it pertains to dealing with school board meeting general belligerence, there has to be a way to draft a set of bylaws to prevent or shut down this embarrassing behavior. Consider the following. If a child were to act belligerent in class to the point that he or she refuses to let the teacher in class continue teaching, he or she would be removed from the class. If it happened again, they would probably be suspended. If it happened again, they would be expelled. Given that this is happening at a school, and this behavior is that of a belligerent child, we should have rules in place to respond accordingly. I know that it's complicated legally, so attorneys would have to get involved and make sure the district doesn't get sued, and I know this is an unfortunate waste of taxpayer money, but at this point, I think it's still worth it. We've been through this before, and now we have a new actor. These people are looking to score big points on their social media feeds by disrupting meetings across the country. So being escorted out by a resource officer or local police is a win-win. The community gets to discuss matters of importance, and the disruptors get to get the dopamine hit while sitting in their political silos. I have more, but I think that's my 3 minutes. So.
Thank you. So I'd like to welcome anyone else, and just a reminder, please don't speak without being recognized. I'll recognize people when they come up to the podium. And please, no more cross-talking while people are making public comments. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I also request that commenters don't speak about other people in the audience or anyone else on stage?
I think being respectful to people who are here and not directing comments.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sandra Lee Porter. I live in Cumberland, Foreside. I've lived in Cumberland since August of 1989. I'm a mom and a grandmother. I'm very thankful that my children received excellent educations from our public schools here in Cumberland and North Yarmouth, at that time North Yarmouth. They both graduated from Greeley. They went on to be college graduates. They went on to professional careers and successful marriages. I'm here tonight to give my opinion about certain books in the school library. These books have already been referenced. I think you folks know what I'm talking about. I believe these books to be pornographic, and I believe they need to be immediately removed from the school. Not in 1 week, not in 1 month or 1 year. Immediately. In other words, do it now. I believe that our school teachers, our librarians, our administrators have a duty to protect and to guide our children. And when they make pornographic material available, they are not protecting, they are not guiding. So it seems to me that some of you board members will say, these books are just close to being pornographic. Or some of you board members will say, these books are borderline pornographic and should stay available to our children. I strongly disagree. And I don't understand why even one teacher, one librarian, or one administrator would violate their duty to protect and to guide our children.
Amen.
Thank you, Sandra. And if there are other speakers, and thank you for the good reminder, comments should be addressed to the chair. So if there's anybody you're going to address, it's to myself, the chair.
Hi, I'm Mary Bellino, and I live on Greeley Road in Cumberland. I was going to bring tonight with me 3 magazines, Hustler, Playboy, and Penthouse, and have them wrapped in plastic and put them alongside this book, Genderqueer, because there's no difference. There's no difference at all. It's all pornography. And anyone who would deny that, to me, is disservicing themselves, this city, our children. And it's despicable. I can't say enough. I'll hold my comments about people, but I think it's just a way to indoctrinate our children, and it's everywhere. It's not just in Cumberland, it's everywhere, and we've got to fight back. And I do think the silent majority will win. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Okay. That ends public comment. And now we're moving to presentations. Hi.
So I am here tonight. I think Susie's going to jump on and present for us. Carla Fancy's here as my Assistant Director of Instructional Support. I'm Julie Olson, Director of Instructional Support, and I am presenting on behalf of Director of Academic Services, Susie Robbins, and myself, Director of instructional support for our school improvement plan or district improvement plan. So we have a co-plan, and certainly I am fine if folks start moving along. Should I pause for a second? Would that be helpful?
Yes, because I'd like to hear.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So our COSIP really focuses on non-categorical supports for students. Our two departments really focus on supporting all learners in the academic realm, and we really look at the academic and social emotional learning for students. So we're looking at the strategic goal focusing on students' college and career readiness, and we are really identifying systems of supports under the multi-tier systems of supports, RTI learning, and both academic, behavioral, social, emotional learning for students. We've identified 3 areas. You can see 2 of them there, and then Susie will scroll down for the third one. The first 2 areas really are a focus that is a carryover from last year. The top area being around writing instruction and working with students, working with administrators, regular ed, and special education staff around identifying best practices in the area of writing. So we want to really hone in on writing instruction and practices to improve our writing instruction grades K through 12 and looking at best practices for writing and assessments. The second area, as you know, the board really supported embedding our professional staff into our functional life skills and behavioral classrooms last year, and really supporting that work and growing those teams of educators this year on behalf of our students, and supporting that work and those teams to grow those programs this year. And then our third area is really around professional development and working non-categorically with regular and special education staff to really look at research and evidence-based practices for reading, writing, and math programs across the curriculum to support and train our staff to ensure that we have proper training and instruction happening, both regular ed and special education, for students who may be struggling in some area. So those are the 3 areas that we're looking at, both in the Director of Academic Service realm as well as instructional support for our goals this year. Any questions?
I was just curious a little, if you could say a little bit more about MTSS and RTI and kind of the similarities or differences, or if there is some transition happening between the 2 there?
Yeah, there is some transition. So I think some districts have just taken off from going from a response to intervention, and they've just decided, the state has taken on the model of MTSS, and some districts have just said, we are now an MTSS school and we're just going to call it MTSS instead of RTI. And we've been very thoughtful to want to grow into an MTSS school, and we've taken that very seriously. Instead of just naming it MTSS, which is why we've put that slash there on the top of our document, to make sure that we're really hitting all of the components of MTSS before we're truly identifying ourselves. We want to make sure that we're being thoughtful and strategic. We have a 3-year plan around developing all of the components of both response to intervention and molding that into a thoughtful MTSS plan of hitting our students in all of the areas of reading, writing, math, and behavior, social, emotional learning, and being thoughtful around all of our learners, those who need additional help, as well as those who are having extension activities under GT.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Awesome.
Thank you. What's up next? Are you up next,
I'll be
Scott?
next, I won't be projecting mine up on the screen. It'll be too small to read anyhow, so I won't put it up on the screen. But for the site improvement plan in finance, human resources, and operations, I've listed 5 areas that would be of importance, and all of these tie to early childhood education, which is one of the board's goals. And the first one would be in the areas of finance, which is the successful plan and financing for a referendum and bonding of a new primary school, which should come as no surprise at this point. The second area is in human resources, which would be the retention and recruitment of staff, and that would be working through our administrative team. Also, looking at things differently in terms of how we retain staff and how we recruit staff, right down to advertisements that are now in movie theaters, on movie screens, and much of what we did this past summer, personal reach outs in the advertising piece, we actually have had success in that area to where we're almost fully staffed at this point compared to other districts. The other area would be to continue to build capacity in the human resources specialist position, which we added last year. In the operations area, one of the areas that we've tried to work with and tried to get going, Denny's actually been part of this with us, is the greening of transportation, and if we can ever hit trying to get some funding around electric buses, that's an area that we'd like to look at, even if we need to start budgeting in our general fund budget to start moving that direction. Facilities area, we're looking to assist in the oversight and the planning and construction of the new primary school, which would be a major piece of work in that area. Also continuing on the short-term plan for space, which we've talked about recently. Continue to update the 5-year capital plan along with our long-range plan. Continue to prepare applications towards the revolving renovation funds. And also work on an energy project at Greeley High School, possibly a lease purchase to help increase the climate control and air handling in that building. And all of those areas have to do with space and capital projects. And the final one would be in food service, which is looking at food waste recycling, which we've had conversations about recently, and we're hoping to also move in that direction. And all of these areas will cross between Finance Committee, Facilities Committee, DLT, and the towns. So that's the areas. Any questions?
Any questions for Scott?
Scott, can I ask what our current teacher retention is? And is it differ significantly by school, or is it pretty much universal, same rate?
I don't have those numbers right in front of me. I'd have to take a look and get those from Fran, and see where we're at with our staffing. But right now, I believe we are fully staffed in our teaching area. So one position, Julie says. So we've got one position, but we're fully staffed in that area.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we have a goal. If that's our goal, what are we trying to get to? And are we trying to get to 80%? We're trying to get to 90%? Just the thought of where we're currently at and what we're trying to get to.
100% retention.
There you go.
Okay. How's that?
That's good.
All right.
So, question for the food service recycling, and I read the email that went around and people interested in it. So, Scott, are you spearheading that, or Leanne, is there going to be a subcommittee, or?
I can tell you where I'm at with it. We actually had a parking lot conversation the other day as well on this, and that involved Chris Bolduc, and I'd had some conversation with Denny. We're looking to work right now with the 2 towns, Cumberland and North Yarmouth, and one of the areas is the pickup of the food waste in a timely fashion so that we don't end up with rodents and bugs and other things. And so we're going to continue to work. Right now I've had several conversations with Chris Bolduc. So we're looking to just kind of work on that with staffing. I'm not looking to have that be a full board committee if that's what you were looking.
I just know that student groups are very interested in being involved, and are you guys all hooking up?
I'm sure as we get some kind of start of a plan, I'm sure we'll start moving in that direction to involve students at the building level as well. Okay. So right now we just need to see what our options are in terms of people that are available to help do some of the waste collection.
And do the middle schools also have green teams still? I know.
I believe there's still green teams around.
Okay, great. Because lots of opportunities for existing student groups to have communication
and a lot of it will involve facilities and food service, and then some of the students as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
About greening of transportation, what options are there other than electric buses?
Well, certainly.
Are there options other than electric
Let me think about that. Brent. Shorter routes, okay. Not using diesel. I think there's been discussions around use of natural gas. That's been one that's been out there as a conversation at one point. Christine?
If we could add some chargers, perhaps. I know we have 3 on campus.
For buses or for?
No,
Okay.
for like students to encourage,
Sure.
like, hey, you can charge your car while you're at school or whatever, but we could bring that into the conversation, it'd be great.
We shall. We have several that we were grant funded for, and we installed them around the district. But that would be on the buses. That's one of the options in a couple of those. But looking at moving towards the electric buses, that's been one of our real targets for some time.
Do we know, I know it's early in the school year, but approximately how full the buses are, what percentage of families are taking the bus?
I think we have a high ridership on the buses. If you look at the elementary buses, they're running pretty much at capacity. At the secondary level, less, but more at the elementary level, they run pretty much at capacity. And it's really not about the number of students on the bus, it's about the distance that they travel.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
No,
so
no.
from one end of town to the other, but most of the elementary buses are running pretty much at capacity.
Yeah, it would be so great to somehow get our high schoolers to take more advantage of the bus.
And my kid.
Well, I imagine it might be a little difficult, though, to tell, too, at the beginning of the year, because we might have more students who are biking to school and that while the weather's
Right.
nice, so.
That's true, yeah.
Scott would love some more questions.
Good, so.
All right. Great. So that's it for the improvement plans?
Yep. So thank you to Susie and Julie and Scott for the site improvement plans. That rounds out all the site improvement plans that the board will be hearing from. Now the district administrators, the 4 principals last meeting. So there are 7 of them that we usually update. The only 2 that we sometimes have brought forward is the athletic SIP and the technology SIP. So those are 2 that we could bring forward. They work on those as well.
Okay.
But that's it. And they're all linked to the strategic plan, which we have been doing that obviously from the beginning days of the strategic planning process, so which is great. So I believe we're doing enrollment.
We're going to move to the enrollment update.
All right.
Give us the numbers.
Here's the numbers. So enrollment is always something that we look at very carefully at the very beginning of the school year. We always have to wait a few weeks. That's why I wait until this time to give you an idea. Planning decisions, as you know, some of this information is just old information, has completed several studies for the district in the last few years, 2016, 19, and then March of 2022. We also have asked the same person, Rebecca Wandell, who's been our external enrollment specialist, to complete an updated report that she said she can have to the board, by the end of October. And that was something that the board had requested. And all 3 of these studies have debunked the 2009 studies that showed declining enrollment. So instead, we're showing increasing enrollment. So every year when we look at enrollment, we always look at these categories. What is impacting our enrollment in a particular year? We have new kindergarten class. Obviously, we lost the senior class from the previous year. There's new housing starts, turnover housing, which just means people buying other people's homes in the community that are for sale. Private and charter school enrollment, homeschooling, superintendent agreements, which are agreements between 2 districts and 2 superintendents to either allow a student to continue in one district that doesn't live there or go to a different district. Transfers in and out are when a family moves in or out of the community. That's a transfer. The reputation of the school district obviously has some draw on families moving in or out. Economy in the housing market, affordability of housing, and then the residual impact of the pandemic. And I'll talk about that a little bit more because it has impacted the numbers that you'll be seeing in this report. We're continuing to see the impact of the pandemic, and that was a caution that Rebecca Wandel had given the board when she conducted the 2022 report. So with resident births, I know some of the detail is hard to see from here, but I put an arrow in the 2018 and 19 years. This was, again, a chart from Rebecca's report, her latest report in 2022, showing the resident births, which is one factor. It's not the only factor, there's many factors, obviously. But this is a really strong indicator of enrollment for kindergarten, especially. And you'll see in 18-19, there was a dip. It looks like pretty much a 2-year dip in the resident births in Cumberland and North Yarmouth. Obviously, that is a strong factor in our enrollment. This is 2023. That would be our incoming kindergartners at this point. So you can see that that will certainly have some bearing on the numbers that we're looking at today in this report. So looking at the entire enrollment, again, this is from Rebecca's study. You'll see that she has different lines right near that arrow. In 2023 is the arrow. Those lines are all pandemic impacted. So in other words, she was struggling to be able to forecast the enrollment for the community based on the pandemic and whether it impacted whether families stayed in this community or not. And she made several COVID adjustments back in 2022 to account for exactly what would the enrollment be, especially for kindergarten. And you'll see that there's different lines, and she had different models, and that's really a huge talking point tonight when I provide these numbers to you, is to show that this was not an exact science this time because of the pandemic. Huge factor. The Mabel I. Wilson School enrollment, you can see by whether it was a COVID adjustment or not, the enrollment is starting to peak and then stabilize. So the arrow again is 2023 right now where we are, and you're going to see that the enrollment is generally plateauing at that school after many years. If you look at the green, many years of increasing enrollment since 2016 going forward. So we're beginning that plateau of the primary school enrollment. For grades 4 to 8, it's a totally different story. Obviously, the numbers from Mabel I. Wilson School are starting to move through. And again, the arrow is 2023, where we are right now. And you'll see that the enrollment, whether it's COVID adjustment or not, those enrollment numbers are climbing. So the left side is 4.5, and the right side is 6.8. They share the same roof, two different schools. But you'll see that the enrollment in either case, whether there's an adjustment for the pandemic or not, those numbers are certainly climbing. Of course, we have a lot more confidence in being able to project numbers based on numbers that we already have in our primary school. So our current enrollment, and I'll go back to 2021, you can see that the certified enrollment, certified just means that the state has cross-checked our numbers, all of the students in our district, making sure that there's not one student in a different district that we're also claiming and vice versa. And the state does that over a period of a month each year in the month of October. So that these numbers are super accurate statewide. And then I will sign off on it, and then the state will sign off on it as well. And they're called certified at that point. Doesn't mean that our numbers don't fluctuate after October 1st or October 31st. Which is actually when the numbers are certified. But you will, we present this based on what is the certified number. So we don't certify these numbers until later in October, but you can see, 2,102 students in 2021, so 2 years ago. Last year at this time was 2,159 students in the district. What Rebecca projected in her report, 2,183 students today in the district. We actually have 2,201 students, so we're actually up 42 students over the projected amount. The other part of the story is in the gray column, which is the right-hand column, showing the 1-year change. So you'll see again that COVID adjustment in the birth rates from 2018-19. Rebecca was struggling, and she cautioned the board when she presented her report as to exactly what the kindergarten enrollment would be coming in this year. So you can see that Mabel I. Wilson School is down from the projection of 779 is what she projected at Mabel I. Wilson. And today we're at 739, so we're down 23 students from a year ago. So 23 students from October 1st, 2022, and more than that based on the projection. We're up 45 students over a year ago at grades 4 and 5, and we're up over the projected number as well. Rebecca projected at 338. We're actually at 362. The middle school 6-8 has been very stable over the last few years, and we're just up 3 students over projections and 3 students over a year ago. And then the high school is another story as well, projected at 588, and the high school is actually at 619. 588 would have been the lowest that we're going to see the enrollment at the high school for many years. And we're actually up over that number, 619, so we're 17 students over a year ago when it was certified in 2022. And certainly a lot more when you look at the projection. So it just kind of gives you a story of the enrollment is hard to predict. Coming out of the pandemic, we're now at least 18 months out of the pandemic, but the numbers that Rebecca was working on she submitted back in March of 2022, and that's why we're asking her, now that we know the numbers coming out of the pandemic, can you please update those numbers? And that's what she's doing. So I think it's really important to note that. We also track all of our homeschool, private, and charter school enrollment numbers. Private schools, this early in the school year, we generally do not have a full return. We put out messages to all the private schools that we have students at, and we usually get back a partial amount at this point. Usually by the end of September, early October, we'll have a full accounting. You can see it's been kind of all over the place with private schools, 109, 152, 98, 25 will certainly not be the number, that's very low. That's why the asterisk is there, that we will continue gathering that information. Homeschooling numbers are pretty stable once this time of the year hits. We're at 56 students, which is 1 student more than last year at this time, and then down from the last couple of years, which were the pandemic years, obviously, 20 and 21 and 20 going into 22. Charter school students, we've had numbers dropping for charter schools over the last couple of years. Not exactly sure why. We only have a couple charter schools that students generally go to. We have 5 students this year. There was a reporting issue last year with our charter students, so we're not sure if, we don't believe 1 was accurate. We tried to get the information and it just wasn't given to us. So we do have 4 students over last year, but it really might be more the same as the year before. Superintendent's agreements in and out. Superintendent agreements are just agreements between 2 superintendents to either take a non-resident student or transfer a non-resident student. And we have 19 superintendent agreements that have been approved to come into the district, and we have 9 superintendent agreements that were approved to go out of the district. So pretty much the same as a year ago with the superintendent agreements. There's a lot more movement during the pandemic where parents were moving, which surprised me at the time, actually, that we had more parents requesting that based on health factors, but there was a lot more movement during those 2 years. So basically the summary is, you know, from my standpoint, the overall district enrollment continues to increase. This is now the 8th year in a row that I've reported that to the board, that our district enrollment is again up. Actual 23-24 enrollment exceeds even the projected enrollment. That's only happened a couple of times during the last 8 years. Usually the enrollment is within 2 or 3 students on the projection, but again, I think it's because of the pandemic and it was hard to predict those numbers coming out of it. K enrollment is lower than projected, and that is the first time in 8 years that the kindergarten enrollment is lower than projected. But again, it's based on the reasons that I explained earlier, linking it to the birth rates of 2018-19, and then the difficulty in really accurately forecasting kindergarten enrollment at this point. The March 22 study that Rebecca completed for the board included a lot of models, some showing lower primary school enrollment at that time, but not as low as the one we have right now. And by the way, our kindergarten enrollment is 145 students, and we were projected to be about around 190 at this time. And we've been running in the 190s for a few years. There's a caution around using 1 year's grade level data. I think we've certainly all know that. When you look at 1 year's data, we have to be really careful about that information and see if it gets replicated in the next year. I think Rebecca's updated projections based on what we now know about the impact of the pandemic on kindergarten enrollment will be very helpful in determining this point for kindergarten going forward. And then the Wilson enrollment has increased, and this will remind everyone, has increased by 200 students, 27%, since 2016. So that is a huge increase. We're well over capacity in that building. We now have half of the students in that school who are outside the main building. So that continues to be the narrative at Wilson School. And we continue to have a major enrollment in space issue at the Wilson School. Certainly the modular units that were installed, and I want to thank Mr. Poulin and Mr. Foster for all of the work in overseeing those projects. Those came out very nicely, but they are they're a temporary fix for a few years, but certainly still is not a permanent fix. And now the middle school will be needing work, as the board has already approved, for this coming summer as well. So that's the enrollment update.
Questions?
I have a couple questions. One is the birth rates are tracked. Are the adoption rates tracked, or is that not a significant number, or we have no way of knowing?
That would be a question for Rebecca to make sure that that's in there, but she any sort of information and data that she's got on a cohort going into kindergarten, she will use that information.
Okay.
So if she had that information, she would have included it in the cohort models that she presented.
And my other quick question is the non-resident students, are those all strictly superintendent decisions, or are there other categories of non-resident students, and can we affect that if we need to in certain age groups?
No, they're all superintendent agreements.
They all are,
Yeah,
okay.
every single one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I should have mentioned too, we're inviting, consulted with Leanne, inviting Rebecca to come to the board once she's updated her numbers.
Okay.
She's done that for all the previous reports, and she'll be able to answer any questions.
Okay.
She's
Very astute at the studies, so she'll be coming back.
Because, yeah, I had lots of questions about the birth rates because they certainly dropped to record lows, Maine, everywhere else, and then jumped back up starting in 2020. So I was curious how much that impacted some of her models.
So, and her disclaimer at that time when she presented this to the board back in 2022 is she says, I'm just not sure, and you're going to have to update these numbers because of the pandemic. And it's the first time her numbers, she was a little bit uncertain about the kindergarten numbers coming in. We're still one of a handful of districts in the whole state that continues to see increasing enrollment, where the state is now declining overall. It's been declining anywhere from, I think we're at 7% decline, 10% they're projecting at the state. And this is one of a handful of districts that continues to increase as the state is decreasing. So.
Monica?
Well, I'm really glad that we will get to hear from Rebecca again. The question that I had tonight is whether we are aware of any trends in who leaves for private school or charter schools or homeschool Have we seen any trends in that over time?
We have. Homeschool numbers are up, and I think prior to the pandemic, they were in the 30s, usually every year. Once the pandemic hit, we were way above 50 at one point for homeschooling. But then they went back down to those numbers that you are now seeing for a couple of years. And I think that some parents that homeschooled their children during the pandemic just kept homeschooling and did not, that's my guess, and decided not to send them back to school. So that's when we saw the numbers shift from the 30s to the 50s. For private schools, it's often, almost, I would have to say, 90% answer on this one would be families tend to choose a private school and their children go to that private school. And it's a family decision. The parents might have gone, and then usually all the children go. The trend on private schools, 10 years ago, we were seeing about 10% of the students leaving for private schools between 8th and 9th grade. And today it's around 5-6%. So that's the trend.
And it is mostly high school that you're seeing
Yes.
those private school numbers.
Yeah, we do definitely have students that attend in middle school, but high school seems to be the biggest number.
Thank you.
So I'm really struck by the decline in the kindergarten enrollment. That was remarkable. What has the impact been of that on staffing and class sizes? So did you shift around the teaching load?
We did. So we took one position and it was left vacant at that time. And Corey Muncie and I kept watching that position. We didn't fill it. We had a vacancy. And we have not filled that kindergarten position. Mm-hmm. So we ended up transferring the money for that position to another position that was needed in the school for MTSS at that time. So it was not a kindergarten position. Right now the numbers in kindergarten are 14 students per class, which is smaller than we usually have. But again, we weren't sure until registrations were finished. The summer came and went. We didn't want to cut a position. Just in case we had, registrations coming in. We usually have 16 students in kindergarten. That's usually our maximum. So right now we have 14.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Tommy?
Similar to that question, with grades, how often and do they alter from year to year? Is that very significant? And if so, how do the schools kind of account for that change in enrollment between years? Like, for example, with the kindergarten being a lot lower than you expected.
So when we know our enrollment's going to shift, and we usually do, even with kindergarten, it's been pretty accurate what the numbers are, we will just not budget for a position. Or if for some reason we budgeted and we're still waiting and holding, which we often do in the summer, we will just keep the position vacant usually. In this case, we needed that position anyway in the school in a different place because of the enrollment. Just overall in the school. But between grades, we generally it's pretty consistent. What we have after kindergarten, we know we're going to have in first grade. We'll pick up a few students from private schools in first grade. After that, we generally know how many students we're going to have. We have students come and go, but it's pretty consistent. And so we budget based on that, and we move staff around. We move our teachers around based on those numbers. So we know we need this many teachers in second grade. We'll make an adjustment and move, someone either to or from second grade to make it work, and make our class sizes pretty consistent. So we do that all the way through. High school is a different story. High school, it's all based on course offerings, number of students enrolled in the school, programming. So high school class sizes tend to be variable. We'll have classes of 25 in high school, and we'll have classes of 5 if we're trying to, run an IB or an AP course, and it's the only course we've got. We obviously want to offer it. That's important to offer it. So that's been the philosophy of the district and previous boards, is to continue with that.
Jeff, could you possibly go back to the birth rate screen?
Yep.
Thank you. Because I just want to acknowledge that if we have 2 years where our kindergarten class is a little bit on the low side, our second and third grade classes are quite high right now, correct?
Correct. That's correct.
And fourth grade.
Well, yes. No, I know. I'm focusing on Mabel
Fourth
Wilson.
grade's a large grade.
Focusing on Mabel Wilson for the moment. So for this year and next year, we're expecting kindergarten, and then of course first grade next year to be a little bit lower. Second and third grade will still be quite high. And then that jump, that's 2024-ish?
I
don't think that.
No, that's, the jump starts, I'm sorry, in 2021 is when the birth rate climbs. So that would be.
Sorry, yes, I'm
yes.
thinking that, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, so then when our current kindergartners are second and third grade, we're anticipating that kindergarten is going to pick back up again.
Yes, that's
and
what we
level up.
anticipate based on
Right.
this factor. Now, this is not the only factor, but it is certainly a huge indicator.
Right. So we're alleviating maybe a little bit of the pressure on Mabel Wilson because of low birth rate, and then the birth rate picks back up. And once our current kindergartners who moved on to fourth grade, we're expecting Mabel Wilson to be bursting at the seams.
That's what I anticipate.
Yeah.
It'll certainly go back to where it was if these numbers pan out and if these models pan out.
Yeah.
And that was what Rebecca had said back then. She said, I just can't predict for you whether
Sure. Yeah.
there's going to be housing, people come in and more into the community, or if truly the resident birth rate is it and people just stay put. And if that's the case, your numbers are going to look lower during these two birth rate years.
And the state of Maine is projected to increase in population. I just saw a study on that last week, I think it was. And finally, can you just remind everyone what capacity Mabel Wilson, what number of students Mabel Wilson is considered over capacity?
So we've been using 550, and that's based on straight enrollment and some programming adjustments. But 550 is definitely at capacity.
Okay.
And we are at 737, and last year we were higher than that, 762, I think it was last year. And so we're certainly been over capacity since 2016 in that building.
Okay, thank you.
And getting more and more.
Right.
Megan.
Third highest growth rate in Cumberland County. So that's entire population, not just kids. But it is sort of piggybacking on this study that came out last week showing that our trends are going up. So I'll be anxious to see and interested to see what enrollment predictions look like with that in mind too.
Yeah, and that was an interesting report about the state of Maine, and obviously we're outpacing the United States for the first time in who knows when in terms of rate of population growth. Percentage-wise, but what was said was that there's still the death rate is still higher than the birth rate in the state of Maine, even with that increase in enrollment or increase in numbers in Maine. So that's interesting to see how that plays out. It doesn't mean that there's necessarily more students or kids in the state of Maine. It just means that more people moved in during the pandemic than anticipated. Maine's a very attractive state, and people are moving here. Who knows if this trend will continue? But
Tim?
Not to focus, I want to recognize the point that you put, don't focus too much on that 1 year. But I think one of my questions is, so my daughter, when she was in kindergarten, was 5, and she had kids in her class that were 7 at the same time, right? And so I wonder if Rebecca, maybe this is more of a question for her, but I wonder if when they were born during that year is analyzed, because it could just so happen this year that they were born at a point where they weren't at that cutoff. And so next year we're going to have a much higher influx. And so I think just being prepared for that or looking into that to see might be worth it. Because I think it's a big jump if a kindergarten teacher goes from teaching 15 to 18 the next year, and they're not really predicting it. So has that been looked at, age cutoffs?
So I did ask about that because our wonderful secretaries who were here earlier, they keep track of all those things on the ground, and they hear every single bit of information about, is someone calling to inquire but not really going to send their child this year, send them the next year. We did have a few families that, at this point we predict will send their child to kindergarten next year, could have sent their child this year but decided to hold them out. We always have a few. It didn't seem like it was more than normal. I think I would say 2 years ago, we did have more than normal. Parents saying, no, I'm holding my child for a year.
Because of COVID, probably. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, because of that. And the other wild card sometimes is first grade, because, my son was the same when he was in kindergarten. We held him, and he went to a private kindergarten for a second year. and then ended up going to public kindergarten as well. So I think a lot of parents do that. We're not hearing that it's going to be, you know, this huge group out there that will extend these numbers. So, and I did ask that specifically because often the school does know, or they've heard. So, but we'll see.
Thanks.
My kids were born October 2nd, my twins.
Any other questions?
It's brutal.
And obviously, as you heard, we're tracking this very closely, and we were anxious to get some numbers over to Rebecca to start working from to do the projections, because it's so important for our community as we're looking to build a new school, and so having those numbers to understand what that pressure is going to look like over the next few years. On one point, it's a little bit of a sigh of relief knowing that MIW has a few less students this year. Those common spaces aren't getting bigger. We have the additional classrooms, and so we're ready when the numbers go back up, which we expect. But we certainly want to better understand what we can be looking at based on these updated numbers.
Yeah, two more quick points I just thought of. The 145, which again is the lowest we've had in a long time, is still higher than any of the numbers that we were seeing prior to 2016 with our kindergarten enrollments. There's 20 students more. So our low is actually much higher than the numbers were previously for many years, which is, I think, why people thought there was an enrollment decline, of course, among other things. The other thing is I did check in with a couple of other superintendents, Yarmouth and Falmouth, and they both had projected numbers, and their numbers also came in lower than the projections. So we do think there's something with this pandemic, with the birth rate year, kind of mix it all together. I think there's just, it's very difficult to project.
But other kindergartens are lower at other districts.
Yes, it's a low year for kindergarten.
Or a good year to have a kindergartner because your classrooms size are smaller.
Yeah, 14.
Class
Yeah,
size.
it's
Right?
2 students less than,
Right?
than typical.
Great. Well, that concludes presentations, and we can move to items for action. Can I ask for a motion on the superintendent's strategic priorities?
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
I'd like to make a motion that we vote to approve the superintendent's recommendations for the 2023-2024 strategic priorities.
I'll second that.
Great, thank you. I know you presented these last time and shared them. Any updates since the presentation?
There's been no updates, no significant updates to the presentation. Everything is as it was talked about. I am doing the staff dialogues a little bit differently. I'm kind of phasing into them a little bit. With the supporting staff plan, we're working on 2 areas, as I mentioned during the presentation: recruitment, which Scott obviously mentioned a lot, and our staffing ratios right now are, I think, if I had to guess, we're probably, you know, at the 98% percentile at this point.
2 positions open.
We have, you're right, we just have a handful of positions, and we're being able to fill positions with applicants, which is awesome. That was not a year ago. We had, you know, vacant positions. Many districts went through this a year ago with no applicants. This year, we have a vacancy, not very many, and we're filling them. We have good applicants, and we're filling them as quickly as we can, so we're keeping it as close to 100%. So that was one area of the strategic priorities that I'm adjusting a little bit, is I'm actually going to each staff meeting at each school. I'm also doing a meeting with all the special education staff together in October, and I'm going to go through the strategic priorities, and then also I want to get their input on the supporting our staff plan, on the ideas, especially around retention. As Scott was mentioning, our goal is 100% retention. You know, if someone's retiring, obviously that's not retention. That's called, you get to retire. You earned it. That's attrition. But in terms of retention and helping our staff, feel like this is a place that they want to work at long-term, that's very important to us.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Great. I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to board goals. We have a smaller audience for this. I'm so excited. Can I ask for a motion?
So moved.
Yeah. A second?
I'll second.
Great, thank you. Denny and Megan. Great. So every year, at least in the past few that I've been on the board, I think many years prior to this, the board itself has put together a set of board goals. We've worked together over the past few months on these goals, discussed them at the retreat, provided some more opportunity for feedback. I'm really excited to present these today. I'll just go through maybe and read it. This isn't posted yet. We'll get it posted the next day or two once we move to approval, but I'll just take a moment for those following along to understand what is on our board goals this year. So in accordance, just a little preamble, in accordance with the policy ACA, diversity, equity, inclusion, education, the board is committed to fostering values that improve diversity, equity, inclusion for students and employees. This overarching commitment is embedded in every goal of the board. And we have 4 main areas that we're focusing on this year. Address and enrollment growth. And the first item under that is to provide a new school solution that builds upon the efforts of previous boards and committees, aiming for a successful referendum passage in the 23-24 school year while addressing the community's needs. And the next is develop a long-term facilities plan in collaboration with the towns of Cumberland and North Yarmouth. The next area is focus on student achievement. The first is support the Equity Leadership Steering Committee to provide a final equity plan for board vote within 3 months of school start in order to fully incorporate action steps into other board and district goals for the remainder of the year. The next is to actively involve and integrate student perspectives, insights, and feedback into school board discussions, policy, and decision-making processes by creating more opportunities for students to engage with and participate in school board committees. To use data and inform discussions and decisions on school performance and identify areas where achievement gaps exist and begin to establish plans to address any gaps identified. Next is to review staff survey feedback and hiring practices in order to fully support staff and improve retention. And finally, on this area, to provide oversight of and support for the district's progress towards an achievement of its 23-24 strategic priorities that we just approved. The third area is provide fiscal accountability, successfully negotiate a new teacher contract before the end of the school year. Is our first goal. Maintain a transparent and fiscally responsive approach to the school budget to ensure that community tax dollars are utilized efficiently and effectively to support the high quality education of our students, and explore additional funding opportunities through state, federal, and other programs to support district goals. And the last area is community engagement and communication. The first goal is to form a new committee focused on community engagement, which we voted on last board meeting. So we already achieved that goal. The next is to increase the number of outreach and engagement opportunities with parents and community. Then it's to create or utilize board-specific communication channels. Next is to ensure superintendent and town managers meet at least monthly to increase communication. And then finally, ensure school board, town council, and select board leadership meet at least monthly to increase communication. So those were the goals as developed collectively by the board. And so I just want to open back up if there's any additional questions or comments on these goals before we vote. Okay. I'll call for a vote. All in favor of this year's board goals? Wonderful. And I'm so excited to work on these goals as a board and to finally have them out in public and not just working together in support. And as I mentioned, we're working to get these posted on our website this week. They'll be on the school board page, and we'll be continuing to provide updates. One of the things that in past years, we've worked on goals, and we want to make sure that there's opportunities throughout the year to check in on how we're doing against these goals. So we're going to be probably at least maybe quarterly provide public updates on how we're doing on each of these goals. All right, next item for action. Can I get a motion for the approval of the state funding application?
I move to approve the state funding application for temporary and interim instructional space.
I'll second.
Would you like to present the state funding application?
Yeah, Scott's going to speak to this since he filed those applications, even though my signature's on it. But it's basically, we're trying to get the district some reimbursed money on the modular units. So Scott will go through the detail.
All right, so the state will allow you to apply for temporary space applications on leased classroom space. And what this application does is afford us to get up to probably $10 per square foot reimbursed from the state and the state funding formula 1 year after you've actually made the payments on that. So it would be 1 year following that. There was some trouble doing this earlier because we had taken full advantage of this back when we'd had the Drown Road School and done leasing before, and we weren't eligible because we had dealt with enrollment pieces then. We've been able to convince Ann at the state that this is a new event for us, and I fully expect at this time to get state funding on these. Haven't had those conversations and worked with her. So what that would mean for us, just quickly, what it would mean for us is if it was, we're currently spending about $533,000 a year on the temporary space that we're doing, and we'll be adding more for the middle school next year. But what it could mean for us is up to about $289,000 in state funds coming back on that. So they either reimburse at $10 a square foot or the actual lease cost, whichever is less. So we're trying to take as much advantage of that as we can. And last that I spoke with Ann Pinette at the state is she had approved these and pushed them on to the finance area. Okay, so we're looking to get some money. Okay.
Any questions? Great. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Can I get a motion to authorize the lease purchase of technology equipment?
I move that the resolution entitled Resolution to Authorize Lease Purchase of Technology Equipment in the principal amount of $547,733 be adopted in form presented to this meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Tom.
So this is a reimbursement resolution, which means that the district will pay, we've paid for this equipment up front. And so we do this every year as a tool so we can get the equipment here prior to the start of the school year and be able to put it in place and utilize it. What this allows us to do is to take about a 16-month period to determine if we want to take that much. We usually use just the fiscal year to reimburse ourselves as a tool through finance, which Tom, you know, is having been on finance and others here that are who are on the board. We watch our fund balance as we get towards the end of the year, and if we don't need to enter into a lease purchase, we don't do it, right? Because we don't want to take on another interest-bearing note if we don't have to. So this is a way in which we have to vote on this within 60 days of having actually paid for the equipment. And then if we find that we don't have to enter into the lease purchase, we won't. But we will enter into it if we have to, based on fund balance as we come towards the end of the year. So it's more of a financial tool.
What Scott's saying is that he's saving you money all around tonight with these two motions, and these are good things. So in all seriousness, Scott, you did a great job.
Thank you.
You're making us tons of money here.
Making
do.
us-
District.
Scott-
Saving us money.
Saving us money.
Scott, can you just tell us a little bit more about what technology was purchased? I know
sure.
Jeff gave us some information to the board, but just so it's shared.
I expected that question. So thank you. Okay, so, all right, so there's, one of the areas is we've spent about $30,000 for the projector and sound system in the new renovated Mabel I. Wilson School multipurpose space and cafeteria over there. So that had an antiquated sound system that didn't work any longer, and so that'll be one of the upgrades for that area. There's also projectors throughout MIW and Greeley Middle School for around $36,000. Many of those went into the modulars, okay, as we had to bring in modulars and on site. And then there's also MacBooks, about $165,000 in MacBooks, Mini Macs, and Apple TVs, which are staff devices for the libraries, lab devices, and many upgraded technology pieces. About $76,000 in new photocopiers, so that we were able to update those across the district and our print software for that. There were Apple Minis, Apple TVs, and laptops for the administration, around 20,000. Those had gotten older, and we had pushed the newer devices to students and staff, and we needed to upgrade our equipment. And then there was about $14,000 that had to do with the network system in terms of battery backups, et cetera. So that would be what we did across the district.
Any other questions?
Well, and again, so just to confirm, so that was those were all things that had been included in the budget, paid for them up front, and now we're doing this authorization just in case we need to do the lease,
That's
which we
correct.
hope we won't have to do.
Yeah, they're all things that we've talked about previously during our budget process.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. All right, so that concludes items for action. We're on to superintendent report.
Oh, great. Very happy to present the superintendent's report, September 18th. So at Mabel I. Wilson School, they had their annual open house. We're in open house season and parent information night season. Many of the schools have both. So Wilson School has had their open house. They'll have their parent information session this week. But over 800 people did attend that well-attended open house at the Wilson School, grades 4-5. Grade 5 students were modeling how the earth rotates, and obviously one of the learning tools that a lot of our teachers use is actually physically getting up and moving around and trying to figure things out in space. So they're featuring themselves as the earth and how the earth is in relation to other objects in the sky. This is something that we often start doing. Grades 6 through 8, the annual Ripple Effect program at Cow Island for our 7th graders. And those are some photos taken from both teams that visited the island last week. So one of the favorites, obviously, is the what is it called? Parasailing. I always forget the name. Zip line. That's right. I did do it too once, one year, a long time, a few years ago. And that's the only time I'll do it. I don't have that picture. No. But it's fun, and obviously they have farm animals out there and all that kind of thing. It's they have kayaking. It's just a really great bonding experience for 7th graders each year. At the high school, the Madrigals sang the national anthem at a Sea Dogs game. They're often invited to do that, and they do that most years. But always it's a really great deal for them to be able to do that and to go to a baseball game and sing in front of thousands and thousands of people.
Can I just add a fun note about that? I heard one of the seniors went from singing at the game to playing in the football game that night.
Well, that would be High School Musical. That's a different movie.
No, no, it really happened.
Yes, we have a lot of talented students who do more than one thing, I would have to say, and I'm looking at Sophia and Tommy, and I think you probably could vouch for that. We have students that it's amazing what their talents are. They're involved in so many different things. But that does sound like High School Musical, kind of trying to be at the football game and then trying to be at the theater or whatever. You can't do both. You can do both, actually. You can do both. The point is you can. And fall athletics, and I know, I don't even want to look at Tommy right now because I know he's probably mad because it says under cross country, all I could find was Rangers. Trust me, I am now in charge of social media for the next 3 months again, and I scoured the social media sites trying to find a photo, and I couldn't find one real quick. So maybe you can help me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
I figured you could help me. I didn't know, I only found one, and it had nothing to do with really running or anything. So, but anyway, here's some photos from the season: girls soccer, volleyball, football, cross country, field hockey. Golf is another one. There is an even one that I can even find on golf. I looked everywhere for Greeley golf. Some years there is, and some years there isn't. And then boys soccer. So did I forget any of them? I think I got them all. I was going through them in my head. Did I get them all? But anyway, so the golf team will need to help us out here and with photos so I can include it in my next report. And in the cross country team will need to, girls and boys will need to get some photos.
A photo.
Okay. Thank you. But anyway, it is an exciting time of year, and I know that people just love athletics. I know the weather's not great, but we're working it through. So that's the report.
Great. Thank you. Okay, now we're moving to committee reports, and we did switch this order up a little bit. We would like to lead with the student reports, if that's okay.
Actually, can I ask a question of Jeff before we move on to committee reports?
Yes.
So it has to do with the Cow Island trip. So half the kids didn't get to go because of weather reasons, and I know a lot of kids and parents are disappointed with that. My understanding is that because of capacity issues on the other end, it's unlikely that's going to be rescheduled. Is there any hope for that group?
So I don't want to speak for the middle school. Mari Trevilcock, I know, put a message out on Friday in her notes, just saying that every effort will be made to give the team that didn't get the overnight some sort of an extra something. I don't know if the Ripple Effect program can be replicated for the overnight for the other team at this point. They schedule way in advance, and that's not us. That's, they're a very popular program. So, and they obviously have to schedule during the fall and the spring or when it's warmer weather. And I think that's the problem we're up against with that. So that's my understanding. I don't know that for sure. I don't know if Maria is still working on that or not at this point, but I know that it was very difficult when she was trying to reschedule. And I know she put some sort of note out on Friday about it. They are trying to do something for that team to provide something extra. I do know that part.
Okay.
Whatever that looks like, I don't know. I'm leaving it to Maria and Jason to figure out, but.
All right. Well, if there's anything that we can do as a board, I know how disappointed some of those kids
I know it was disappointing. Yeah. I heard that. Yeah.
There's a few of us with 7th graders, isn't
yes.
there? Great.
I think Denny had his hand raised.
Sorry. No, okay.
Oh, no? Okay.
So we've moved to student reports, and can you also share if you went on the Ripple Effect trip when you were in 7th grade and maybe a fun memory?
Do you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll start Ripple Effect, Cow Island. Looking back on it, it was definitely a fun experience. I think when I was there, it was a little intimidating, like spending almost 3 days with
it was longer.
the people in your grade, yeah. Or maybe it was one night. I don't really.
I think it used to be. No. It was. It used to be 2 nights.
Yeah.
Your memory is correct.
Yeah, I definitely remember we did like build a raft thing, and I was one of the people who was sent out on the raft in the ocean. Looking back, it was fun. I lived, so I don't think we won, but it was still fun. Moving on to the student report. I think everyone's finally getting settled back into school. We have tests and quizzes now. That's starting, so definitely talk about that. Today was our day where we decided in advisory what activities we would sign up for our first ever enrichment and club time, which will be happening Thursday during our advisory. I think a lot of people were pretty excited about that, and I think there's like so many options. There's the basketball, you can do ping pong, math team, you can do coloring. I signed up to color. And there's like yoga and knitting, and there's so many different things. So that's really exciting. I also think that'll also be happening monthly, to my knowledge, so that's very fun. There's also a lot of buzz about student officer work for the juniors because this is our year where we're in charge of prom. So there's a lot of talk about like where prom will be and fundraisers and everything like that. So that's my report.
Great. Thanks, Sophia. Tommy?
Yeah. Well, enrichment, we are all very excited for. Me and a couple other seniors will be running the student government club time where the activity is secret. We're not divulging what we will be doing yet, but I think one of the most interesting ones that I heard about was Dr. Baca is teaching people how to change a tire, which is very useful, and I wish I could be going to that, but that filled up very quickly. So it's a coveted spot to get to go to Dr. Baca's room to learn how to change a tire. But as Sophia talked about, there's so many diverse and great opportunities. Also, like what Mr. Francis said, there's time to talk with him about what's going on in the school. And in advisory today, we signed up, and it was like there were almost too many opportunities to choose from. If you're walking through the high school, there's like a piece of paper that's this big, 2 of them just filled with a bunch of different rooms and opportunities to go to. So that's really exciting. I'm excited for the enrichment days to come. And as in the superintendent's report, the football game and just the triple header that occurred last Thursday night was the student section was electric. It was a lot of fun, a lot of school spirit. It was great to finally get back out there, and one of the few football home games we've had since the team was reincorporated. And there was a lot of chatter about the game for days and over the weekend. And we're very excited that the football team is back at Greeley, and just for an exciting fall sports season ahead. And similar to what Sophia was saying about the junior class having to plan prom, the seniors are planning the homecoming dance, which is coming up in mid-October, and we're planning theme days and just kind of like pep events to really celebrate Greeley and the high school, and that will culminate around a homecoming game as well as the homecoming dance, which will be Saturday night.
Awesome. Thank you. Any memories from Ripple Effect from you?
Oh, yes, Ripple Effect. I loved it. I also was someone who was sent out on the raft, and I don't know if it was purposeful. I don't know if it was purposeful, but basically as soon as I got out there, just the raft fell apart, and I had to swim to touch the dock while also holding all the foam and rope that was supposed to put together the raft. But I love swimming, so it was fun nonetheless. Maybe that was actually how I wanted it, but we definitely didn't win the raft competition. But it was a very there was a lot of bonding, and I definitely remember the Ripple Effect time very fondly.
Great, thank you. All right. So let's move on to our first official committee update from the newly formed Community Engagement Committee. Megan?
The committee is indeed formed, and we will welcome 2 volunteer members. I know you're going to speak on that in a few minutes, which is really exciting. People who submitted applications were amazing. So it's very exciting how much enthusiasm there seems to be for this committee and for engagement. And our next steps are to bring the group together and start having our meetings. So more to come.
Great. Thanks so much. Finance, Tom?
I don't have any updates for finance or curriculum, but I do have a question. So since Melissa's out on maternity leave, and I did not tell her when I want to schedule my meetings. Do I get in touch with Fran?
No, you just have to directly schedule now.
Okay, oh no.
That's your consequence now. No, it is Fran now, and that's for the whole board. Fran Prentice is really your go-to. Occasionally it'll be Trish Small jumping in too, but Fran Prentice is the primary. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
She was talking about you and your scheduling.
Oh, good.
Melissa on her way out or Fran on her way in?
Both. Just kidding.
All right. Policy, Anne.
We have our first meeting scheduled September 26th via Google Meet. And as I mentioned at our last meeting, the first policy that we will be addressing is IKF graduation.
Great. Thanks, Anne. Christina, facilities. Oh, sorry,
I have a
Jenny.
question.
Sure.
These folks who were here earlier, have they attempted to follow the process at all? I mean, why doesn't someone in that group just start the process of protesting a book and working it up, rather than thinking that we can solve the problem unilaterally, which we can't? Is anybody putting a bee in their bonnet? Because in my experience, when I was a superintendent, I had a few challenges like that, and the process itself is very settling because people feel they're being heard, and it's not just us. There are other folks and actual. So, I would hope that maybe one of those folks could, get the ball rolling. And if they don't, then we know they're not serious.
Yeah, and that's why I did do the presentation at the last
I know you
meeting,
did.
and then I put it out in the newsletter this week, and it had all the information, with the policy. If, there is a process for people that are disgruntled with something in our library, if there's a process they can follow. Yeah.
And nobody has formally started.
No one has come forward.
Yeah.
There's been no form.
Is it possible maybe to reach out to ones that are, who, obviously they're people who seriously are concerned about this issue, and I just think it might speed the process along and make it more productive if they got going, because then they would be doing things and there would be benchmarks and people they could talk to. Because it's foolish for them to come here and ask us to do something, because we can't act unless it follows the process, if I'm correct.
Yep, that's right. And I have said to individuals who've brought this up to me that there is a process and a policy, and you should read the policy. Here it is. I can send you the link. So that information is out there.
Maybe you should invite them in and show them how the paperwork would start, perhaps. I don't, just a suggestion.
Any other questions? Okay. Christina, facilities.
Facilities. We have set our schedule for our meetings. It'll be the first Friday every month. I did get to Melissa in time, but I don't know if I told her it'll be on Google Meet, so I guess I'll have to circle back to Fran on that one too. So you have company, Tom. And topics and priorities that people have are coming in, and I do have a meeting coming up with Scott and Jeff to find out their priorities and plans. So.
Great. Thanks, Christina. So Tom gave curriculum, and then we're on to equity. Kim.
Well, I echo what Megan said. We had some amazing applicants, so I want to thank everyone who took the time and offered their insight into what they would bring to the committee. And we have selected 2 members who you'll be announcing in a moment. For those that, because we just to keep the committee efficient, 2 members was the right number from the community. But those who were not asked to actually be on the committee all have a lot to offer. And we're really hoping that that's not the end of or the last time that we hear from them. So I think there are many opportunities for people to still get involved, even if you're not officially on the committee. And one of the ways that we are hoping people get involved, as we mentioned, one of our board goals is to get the equity plan finalized within the first 3 weeks of school, 3 months first 3 months of school. And so there's still time to offer input on the draft of the equity plan. And we've gotten some great feedback. Tim and I have been reading over that and compiling it. So we welcome anyone else who wants to look over that plan and make sure that you let us know what it is that you would like to see in the plan, or if you have any questions about it. And that is through September 30th, I believe. Yeah. So
as long as we need it.
Yes,
you know.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I would just like to point out that I was not able to schedule meetings because we didn't have the committee formed. So I couldn't do that. But we will be getting that.
Great. And I did want to say thank you to Tim, who's transitioned from one of the community reps to the board member who's serving with Kim on the committee, and all the work that he and Jared put in as co-chairs last year. I mean, it's amazing to have this now draft document from that work last year that we're able to, you know, put the final last touches on through this feedback, and it really set us up great to start this year.
Thank you.
Definitely.
I'm excited I didn't have to schedule anything and get yelled at by.
Is there any ad hoc committee reports? I know it's still pretty early for some of these other committees that people are liaisons. I won't necessarily go through them yet, maybe next meeting, but if anyone else who's a liaison has an update in their liaisoning, I know it's early. And actually, this goes right into my next item. So any other committee questions or updates before I transition? Okay. So in the communications item, as you may have heard the last meeting, I was like, what is this item? What can we talk about? So I started to add some things that I wanted to make sure we talked about under communications, and maybe I'll get some guidance from the Community Engagement Committee in the future about what to talk about during this communications item. But today, as you've heard, we have our board committees finalized. It will be posted this week. I was told with Melissa being out, things might get updated a little slower, which is fine. It's been
She was planning to do it from her newly found motherhood.
No, I hope not.
Yeah. Well, speaking of communications, is there an announcement?
I don't have one right now.
Okay.
I think all is mom, but yeah, she did. She had her baby.
Oh, okay. It's so exciting. And so we have our 2023-2024 board committees finalized, and these will be posted to the board of directors website. As I think we've kind of walked through during the committee reports, as a combination of our board committees, which we had invited community members, and it was really wonderful to see, like, Kim and Megan mentioned some really great applicants. And so there's been 2 members selected from the community for the equity committee. And we have finalized that list. And thank you, Shauna Cook-Mueller, who is in attendance here today, will be one of our 2 community reps along with Sarah Allenby for the equity committee. We are also really happy to expand the list of teachers who are represented on the committee. We have Rich Taylor, who will be the teacher rep from GHS. Yazzie Azel will be a teacher rep from MIW, and we've also invited back some of the other administrators who served on last year's committee, which are Mari Treblecock, who is the GMS 6A principal, and Katie Campbell, social worker at GMS 4-5. So it really rounds out representation from each of our buildings. And then we have a student rep, Jordan Kuhl. Thank you. I was going to say I needed some help making sure I pronounce that correctly. So we're really excited. That is the equity committee finalized today with our community members. And thanks again for everyone who expressed interest. Looking forward to continue that work on the equity committee. And then next with the community engagement, as Megan mentioned, we invited 2 members. And the same is true for the equity. Each of the two members, one is from Cumberland, one is from North Yarmouth for both committees, which is great. So we've invited Marjorie Hall and Nita Cutter as our community reps. And we also have Tommy will be serving as our student rep on that committee. And all these will be posted along with every member of the board who's with all the committees, who the administrators are, little snippets about what each committee is responsible for. And there's also a whole list of board liaisons for other activities both in the community, at the school, everything from safety and security to recreation department to the athletic advisory board. So that is my board committee assignments. It's really exciting. So much of the work of the board happens in those committees, so really to get started and have so much great people represented to be contributing, so thank you. Next, I just put another plug in for the Foundation 51 Fall Fling, which is September 29th. As Amy Hale shared during public comment, Foundation 51 provides a lot of wonderful grant funding to our school community, and tickets are on sale. Annika.
I just wanted to add, and maybe this could have gone during the ad hoc liaison committee reports as well, but PTO also has an upcoming parent university on raising sexually healthy children with Jennifer Wiesner, a mini workshop for caregivers of children from birth to 9 years, and that will be Wednesday, October 4th from 6 to 8 here in this room, the Geiger Room at Greeley High School.
Great. Thanks, Annika. Anything else that people want to mention under communication?
Great. I don't know if, I guess I'm not sure if it's best under communication, but I just wanted to make it publicly known that I support our school librarians and the process that they take to review all materials that are available in our library. And I think it's important that all students in our district have books that represent people who are going through things that they are.
Thank you, Anne. Great. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Tommy?
No, sorry.
Oh.
That was my bad. That was my
Megan.
bad.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Forgot that I couldn't do that.
Okay, all in favor. Great. Unanimous. Thank you, everyone.